From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
We have this massive agency that's collecting a tremendous amount of information every day by satellites, by tapping into undersea cables, by picking up microwave links and tapping into cell phones and data links and your computer email links and so forth. And then it has to store it someplace, and that's why they built Bluffdale.
As the U.S. vows to take all necessary steps to pursue NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden, we'll look at the NSA's secret war with longtime investigative reporter James Bamford. He profiles NSA Chief General Keith Alexander and connects the dots on PRISM, phone surveillance, and the NSA's massive spy center in Bluffdale, Utah. Then, in a 9-0 ruling, the Supreme Court bars patenting human genes.
How can it be that a company controls genes? How is that possible?
We all know people who've experienced breast cancer.
There are places where the patent system has gone too far, that too much patent protection can, in fact, trample our civil liberties.
We'll speak with the senior federal judge, Robert Sweet, whose ruling was upheld by the High Court, as well as a plaintiff and one of the lawyers who argued the case. We'll also speak. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. FBI Director Robert Mueller has defended the Obama administration's mass collection of domestic phone records, saying such practices are legal and done in the interests of national security. Speaking before the House Intelligence Committee Thursday, Mueller also confirmed the administration has launched a criminal investigation into Edward Snowden, the whistleblower who leaked the secret documents about NSA spying.
As to the individual who has admitted making these disclosures, he is the subject of an ongoing criminal investigation. These disclosures have caused significant harm to our nation and to our safety. We are taking all necessary steps to hold the person responsible for these disclosures. As this matter is actively under investigation, we cannot comment publicly on the details of the investigation.
Edward Snowden is believed to be hiding out in Hong Kong. The New York Times is reporting the Obama administration has decided to begin arming Syrian rebels fighting President Bashar al-Assad after concluding Assad's forces have used chemical weapons. The White House said Thursday it has firmer evidence that the Assad government used the weapons multiple times on a small scale and that up to 150 people have died. Unnamed officials told the Times the CIA would coordinate the transfers of small arms and ammunition. The United Nations says roughly 93,000 people have died in the 2-year-old civil war. A UN panel recently accused both sides of carrying out war crimes. In a conference phone call with reporters Thursday, U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes declined to say exactly what type of aid the U.S. would give the rebels' Supreme Military Council.
The president has made a decision about providing more support to the opposition. That will involve providing direct support to the SMC. That includes military support. I cannot detail for you all of the types of that support for a variety of reasons. But again, suffice to say, this is going to be different in both scope and scale in terms of what we are providing to the SMC than what we have provided before.
The Supreme Court has unanimously ruled companies cannot patent isolated human genes. The case concerned patents held by Myriad Genetics on genes linked to breast and ovarian cancer. The genes have been in the public eye since Angelina Jolie said she had underwent double mastectomy after genetic testing revealed her elevated risk of breast cancer. The test she took cost thousands of dollars, but that could now change under the court's decision. We'll have more on the patents later in the broadcast. A group of top U.S. doctors are calling on their colleagues in the military to boycott the mass force feeding of prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. In an article for the prominent New England Journal of Medicine, 3 medical professors from Boston University wrote, quote, "Physicians at Guantanamo cannot permit the military to use them and their medical skills for political purposes and still comply with their ethical obligations. Force feeding a competent person is not the practice of of medicine. It is aggravated assault. As Guantanamo increasingly becomes a medical ethics-free zone, we believe it's time for the medical profession to take constructive action, they wrote. The majority of Guantanamo's 166 prisoners are on hunger strike to protest their indefinite detention. 43 are now being force-fed through tubes. The Pentagon has sent dozens of medical personnel to Guantanamo to assist with force feeding. A U.S. military judge presiding over the Guantanamo tribunal of USS Cole bombing suspect Abdel Nashiri is barring both the public and the suspect himself from attending a secret pretrial hearing today. Army Colonel James Pohl said information being discussed at the hearing could cause, quote, grave damage to national security if revealed. Al-Nashiri could face the death penalty for allegedly plotting the bombing that killed 17 sailors on a U.S. warship in 2000. Iranians are heading to the polls today to cast their votes for president. The presidential campaign has seen thousands of Iranians rallying in favor of reforms, including the release of political prisoners. Iran's 2009 election was followed by a brutal crackdown against mass protests over the disputed re-election of President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who's leaving power after exhausting the two-term limit. Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan says he will halt plans to raise an Istanbul park until a court weighs in on the issue. The planned destruction of the park and ensuing violent crackdown on demonstrators sparked 2 weeks of mass protests in Turkey. Protesters now say Erdogan has pledged to honor the outcome of a court case aimed at preserving the park and hold a referendum if the court sides with the government. Demonstrators have remained in Taksim Square and the adjacent Gezi Park, despite Erdogan's 24-hour deadline for protests to end. On Thursday, mothers formed a human chain between their protesting children and Turkish riot police.
May God protect our children here. Anything may happen. Everybody has kids. As mothers, we would like to end the pressure and the torture. We do not want a dictatorial government.
Israel's moving forward with plans to expand 2 settlements in the occupied West Bank by adding more than 1,000 new homes. The plans would see more than 500 housing units each added to the settlements of Itamar and Bruchin. Palestinian leaders accused Israel of torpedoing possible peace talks by continuing the expansion, which they say is illegal. In Colorado, at least 2 people have died as one of the worst wildfires in state history continues to rage. The Black Forest Fire has burned through roughly 16,000 acres, destroyed hundreds of homes, and forced tens of thousands of people to evacuate. At least 1 person was killed and more than 70 injured when a chemical plant exploded in Louisiana Thursday. The cause of the blast was unknown, but it was fueled by the petroleum-derived chemical propylene. Those within a 2-mile radius of the plant located in Ascension Parish were told to remain in their homes due to the smoke. In financial news, Bloomberg News is reporting traders at some of the world's biggest banks have manipulated key foreign exchange rates used to set the value of investments worth trillions of dollars. Traders said the rigging is accomplished by executing deals before and during the minute-long windows when benchmarks are set. The report says the activities happen daily for at least a decade. The latest news follows the public scandal over the rigging of the global interest rate LIBOR. Matt Taibbi wrote in his blog for Rolling Stone, quote, "If this story is true, it would almost certainly trump LIBOR for scale horribleness," he said. The U.S. House of Representatives, meanwhile, has passed a bill that would allow U.S. banks to skirt new financial regulations on derivatives trading by moving such operations overseas. Critics say the move could trigger another financial crisis by allowing risky deals to continue abroad. But some financial reformers are claiming a half victory because a majority of Democrats voted against the bill despite Wall Street pressure. The policy director of Americans for Financial Reform told Mother Jones magazine, quote, "I'm pretty psyched. A majority of Democrats voted against a pro-Wall Street bill, even though it was co-sponsored by Democrats." Senate lawmakers have rejected a measure by Republican Senator Chuck Grassley to severely delay a path to citizenship for millions of undocumented residents as part of the landmark immigration reform bill. The Grassley amendment would have required officials to maintain, quote, effective control of the entire U.S.-Mexico border for 6 months before immigrants could apply for legal status. It's one of several bids by Republican senators to increase border enforcement as part of immigration reform. Meanwhile, 3 young people drew drew attention to the separation of families under current U.S. immigration policy this week when they went to the Mexican border to see their mothers for the first time in several years. The mothers, separated from their children by deportation and restrictions on reentry, traveled north from Colombia, Mexico, and Brazil. They embraced their children through the bars and the border fence that divides Mexico and Arizona. Today marks 6 months since 20 children and 6 adults were shot dead at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. Adam Lanza's shooting rampage began earlier on December 14th when he killed his mother, Nancy, at their home. It ended when he turned the gun on himself. The massacre sparked a push to strengthen gun laws, accompanied by a backlash fed by the powerful gun lobby, NRA. In April, the Senate rejected proposals to expand background checks and ban assault weapons. According to CNN, at least 5 states have tightened gun laws since the shooting, while more than a dozen have loosened them. Families of the Sandy Hook shooting victims returned to Washington this week as part of a renewed push for gun control. Nicole Hockley, mother of Sandy Hook victim Dylan Hockley, age 6, said the families would not abandon their quest for change.
It's important that the lawmakers remember that we are still here and that we're not going away, and this is an issue that we're not going to allow to fade into the background. It's too important. It's too common sense.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.